Okay, welcome. We are so glad you're here. Today, we're here doing a webinar talking about the Institute on the Environment's Impact Goal grants. We call it the Institute on the Environment, I&E. So you will hear a lot about I&E Impact Goal grants today. My name is Melissa Kenny. I'm the Director of Research and Knowledge Initiatives at the Institute on the Environment. We're going to just go around the room briefly and do a quick round of introductions. Jessica.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica Hellman. I'm the director here at the Institute on the Environment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Ingman, Director of Learning and Development here at the Institute on the Environment.
I can go next. Hi, my name is April Duncan. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Admin and Operations. So I'm the person who helps with budgeting and cost expense allowability.
Hi, I'm Sean Ramberg. I use he and they pronouns, and I'm the operations coordinator at the Institute on the Environment.
Hello, I'm David Abaz. I'm the Regional Sustainable Development Partnership Liaison with I&E and will be available to schedule conversations with.
Marvelous. So as we get started, today we're going to go through the RFP, answer a number of the questions that you might have, but the main thing that we're focused on is you. Our goal today is to answer as many questions as we can before we wrap up our time together. And to facilitate that, I'm going to encourage you to put your Q&A into the Q&A box. Now, if you're looking for that, if you go into the bottom, you'll see the three dots where it says more. If you go into that, it will have a little question box that has Q&A. So please put your questions. You can put them either named or anonymous, depending on your preference. So to get us started with an introduction to the Impact Goal grants, Jessica.
Great. Thank you very much, Melissa. I have the great pleasure of giving a little sort of background information about what this program is and where it sits and why it exists. So Impact Goals is a flagship program. It's our annual big call for funding for investigators at the University of Minnesota working with external partners outside the University of Minnesota. It is a primary mechanism by which we bring about and catalyze and enable and support and celebrate and participate in research that is the hallmark of the way that we do things here at the Institute on the Environment. So the Institute on the Environment is a university-wide, all colleges, all campuses, interdisciplinary institute focused on helping to build a future where people and the planet prosper together. That means we are advancing interdisciplinary scholarship that addresses real-world issues, problems, and solutions as related to sustainability. In this Impact Goal program, you will hear a lot of the language and the approach and the basic methodology that we use at the Institute in order to leverage the tools of higher education and put them to good use for problem solving on behalf of the citizens of our state, our region, and around the world. This year, the Impact Goal Grant Program is $1 million of investment. These are for teams. Those projects and teams have to be focused on outcomes. We'll have quite a bit to say about how you express your outcome. They have to be interdisciplinary and they have to involve folks outside the university. This is all linked because it is our flagship catalytic research granting program. It is all linked to the Institute on the Environment's current strategic plan. It is also linked to the university's strategic plan. It has been linked to the previous strategic plan, and right now the university is developing its new strategic plan. Sustainability research is one of the pillars in that plan, and the Impact Goal Grant Program is one of the pathways by which we achieve those strategic imperatives that are listed in our new plan. The Impact Goal Grants Program is supported by a variety of funding sources internal to the university and also philanthropic and also from grants and other sources. And I particularly like to call out the Seeding the Future Foundation, which has supported food-related projects in the past and is again this year, and something called MnDRIVE, which is a state-funded program that has been around now for many years. In certain areas, there's a MnDRIVE environment theme where resources came specifically to drive toward innovation, entrepreneurship, and problem solving around the environment to the University of Minnesota for benefit of citizens of our state. So we are grateful to be able to use those resources to catalyze outcomes at the university and for all of our benefit. We fund in certain areas, which I'm going to turn to Ben to give him the opportunity to explain that.
Thank you, Jessica. You heard Jessica mention the strategic plan at the Institute on the Environment, and recently, within that strategic plan, we articulate 10 domains that kind of add a language for our priorities and areas that we're looking at in this funding opportunity. They are adaptation, mitigation, biodiversity, clean energy, water and land, food systems, planetary health, environmental justice, natural capital, decision support. So if you can't find a home for your work in that list of 10 things, then give me a call and I can help you find a spot for it. I think the hope here is that we're casting a wide net for really innovative and creative work. And I think these domains are not isolated. They're interconnected and they operate together to help us pursue our strategic plan. We also maintain a commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in this. So hopefully you're able to articulate that connection as well. But that's kind of the underlying support for this RFP, those domains, and that commitment to DEIJ.
So as you're going through, I'm going to encourage you to pull up the links that Sean has put into the chat. The first one is the RFP. The RFP provides all of the details that you need in order to be able to understand the proposal. And Sean, if you're able to, I would love for you to be able to pull up that single page layout of the RFP that's on our website. And that's just because I want you to know that everything that we are talking about today is also in the RFP. So if you have questions, you may absolutely see that. So we're going to scroll down. We're going to go to page 8, just so that you can see a little bit about where we talk about these domain areas. That's great, Sean. Thank you so much. And then I just wanted to point out two things. One is, if you scroll to the next page, the types of research we fund. So I&E has 3 core pillars that we think are critical to advance sustainability impact. One is our research and discovery engine. The second is education and learning. And the third is communications. For this RFP, if you're approaching any one of these 3 things, you're doing it from a lens of scholarship, not a lens of like programmatic development or implementation. The RFP funds development of new novel research and knowledge insights that help us to really tackle how to make meaningful and measurable changes that advance sustainability in Minnesota for the world, or in the broader world for the benefit of Minnesota. We're going to just do a tiny bit of scrolling just because I want you to see this RFP in case you haven't had a chance to look. So we talk a little bit about the benefit to funded teams. We're not going to talk about it right now, but I'm happy to answer questions as you have them. A little bit of the support and stewardship, community impact communications. And then here's the core things related to how to apply. So funding and eligibility. Jessica mentioned we award $1 million annually. We award both medium and large scale projects. Medium scale are less than 100K, large scale are 100K to 200K. If you scroll to page 13, I think. Yes, 13 describes eligibility and allowable costs. So please take a look at that as you go through. Again, we're happy to answer questions, or if you just want us to talk a little bit more about it, just add it into the question and we will. And next page, you're doing great, Sean. Thank you. And then the call for competitive proposals. We're going to pause here for a second. So this call mirrors the timeline of our previous RFPs that we've had for the past 7 years or so. The statement of intents, which are optional but highly encouraged, are due February 9th. This is a 5-minute form and it helps us to make sure we're identifying reviewers who will be able to effectively review the proposals that we're expecting and to make sure that we can appropriately plan given the number of proposals that we expect. Proposals are due March 9th. That is a hard deadline. The form will close at 11:59 on March 9th, Central Time, and it will not reopen. So please plan accordingly. We highly encourage you to submit proposals early. So if there are any technical difficulties, you can work with us so that we can help you to solve any challenges that arise. The proposals are reviewed by a team of panelists. Given the proposal review, a subset of those proposals will be invited for pitches. So presentations as a second round review on May 5th and 6th. I highly encourage you, if you submit a proposal, to block off those days. We will assign proposal pitch times, and we have limited flexibility to schedule teams at particular times. So please block off both of those days. If you are applying to this call, we will not be able to do pitches on days other than May 5th and 6th. So if those dates don't work for you this year, then we highly encourage you to take a look next year to be able to apply. The awards decisions are announced to teams by June 1st, announced more publicly by usually June 15th or so. And then teams are able to begin their projects at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1st, 2026. Projects are between 1 and 2 years as they're getting submitted. For the proposal, we have the components of the review. I'm going to highly encourage you to take a look at those quick links, which have the form link for the statement of intent. It has a budget template and it has a proposal submission form. So all of the documents that you need in order to submit your RFP. If you go through these pieces, it tells you exactly how to submit your proposal. So as you go through, Sean, would you be willing to just scroll down through for the next couple of pages? You're doing great. Yeah, exactly. So there's a cover letter, which we tell you what we want on the cover letter. The next page tells you what we want in the proposal. Please take a look at this very carefully because this is how our reviewers evaluate your proposal. There's no secret evaluation mechanism. We try and be very clear about how we're evaluating it. Because these are team projects, project management is something that we have a 1-page document, and we highly encourage you to well, you're required to submit a project management plan that helps to describe how you will collaborate together and who's going to lead different parts of the project. And then each team member submits a resume or CV. Because you're required to have a non-academic partner as part of your team, we understand that not everyone submits CVs in the same way that we do at a university, and each discipline has different norms and formats related to it, and each non-academic sector has norms related to it. We ask you to just help to relate or to make choices about what to include based off of what would be meaningful for reviewers to know about as they evaluate your collaboration on the project. So we have some tips in that part. Fourth is budget documentation. If you have questions related to budget, April is here to answer any questions related to the budget description or justification. This is a fairly straightforward. Funds can be used to support non-university partners, and you can't fund things that cannot typically be funded by a university. Perfect. Final thing. If you want to know how we make our decision, it's on these pages related to criteria for evaluation and review. This is the guidance that we give our reviewers. This is how we evaluate our project proposals. So alignment with impact goal domains and outcomes, interdisciplinary strength and partner engagement, equity and inclusion, outputs, outcomes, and pathways to impact, innovation, rigor, and contribution, feasibility and team capacity, and finally, the potential for future growth. Having a proposal that is strong on multiple of those criteria and dimensions are usually proposals that are more successful than others. The one final thing is across, we have a number of proposals that are submitted, and I am just always delighted with how difficult you all make our decision. And so final decisions do consider a portfolio approach, making sure that we are representing broadly across our impact goal domain areas, geographies, different university campuses, and the type of societal relevance and impact. So final things before we flip things to your questions is the submission timeline. We're just going to pull this up for a moment. And that's just so that you know what to expect. So proposals are due March 9th. You'll be notified of your status by April 10th. Pitches are May 5th and 6th. You'll be notified of your status by June 1st, and projects start July 1st. Now, we want to make sure that you are successful. We really want highly competitive proposals. And so one of the people here is David Abbas, who's with the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships, and RSDP has partnered with INE for the past 7 years on our impact goals strategy that we jointly hold. And David, can I pass it to you to share a little bit about office hours and things that we can do to support teams as they're thinking about and developing proposals?
Yep, great. And I did just put in the chat the link to sign up for office hours. So what it is, I have multiple office hours available throughout my time through March 9th to individualize your questions, your needs, your thoughts, even just curiosities about the project. And I will answer those questions to the best of my ability and or find the answer for you to address that need. So whether it's a brainstorming session, you're like, these are my ideas. And again, I'll be referring back to the RFP for the fundamentals and expectations. But make sure one of the things that has come up in the past is just make sure there's authentic relationships with the community, as well as a great team put together at the university. So that there's some fundamentals in there that you should just make sure you're addressing. But again, that's the time to individualize your questions and say, I have this thought or this idea, or does this count? And having been a previous applicant, successfully and not successfully, I've learned it from multiple areas as well. So please reach out, sign up for one of the openings that I have, and I really look forward to hearing about your ideas and your thoughts and your questions.
Thank you, David. We're going to go into the Q&A right now, and we'll take as much time as you need up till about 12:45. So we're going to encourage you to submit your questions using the Q&A function below. Remember, if you don't see that below in your Zoom, click on the 3 dots and the circle where it says more, and you'll be able to pull up that function where it looks like a text box with a question inside. So to get us started, Jessica, maybe I can turn things first to you to answer this question. Do we at INE have a preference for established partnerships or new partnerships?
We do not have a preference for either. We're mostly interested in what is innovative and transformational and catalytic about your partnership. So very, very important in the way this grant program works is what outcome or goal, which is why we call it impact goals. What is the goal or the impact that you and your team seek to achieve? And what is the knowledge barrier that stands in the way of achieving that goal? So that might be that you have an established team that's now ready to address a particular goal. And because your team is established, you have a very clear understanding of the knowledge gap that stands in the way of making progress against that goal. Or maybe you've newly formed a team and or even the smaller grants are great places to very clearly explore what knowledge gaps need to be achieved in order to meet your goal. So neither, but the more important particulars are, do you know what you are doing and why you are doing it, and why it is such an important step to take toward achieving a sustainability outcome? Is that the right answer, Melissa?
You're the director. Yes.
Actually, David, you're right. As a successful and unsuccessful applicant, you should probably answer, does that sound like the right answer? That's our intent. I'll put it that way.
Yes, we want authentic relationships, and whether those are new or established. Um,
I will add one methodological piece that maybe gives some insight into this question. One of the reasons why we have evolved over the years to have groups come and pitch their ideas is because you really can see the authenticity of the team in those presentations. You see the nature of the relationship. Even if it's a new relationship, you see how it has come to be and why it is. And those pitches are just really, really informative about how the team functions and what it seeks to do.
Thank you. David, maybe I can follow up because one of the questions we oftentimes get asked is, who is a community partner? I'm wondering if you might be able to get us started just chatting a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, and it can mean a lot of different things, but a community partner is a non-university professional, but there might be it can be organizations and nonprofits, institutions that are non-associated, um, local champions in that field of work that can bring experiential knowledge to help create a project that is indeed like a spoonful of yeast in a vat of milk, where that project will transform the milk by the end of it. Now, big expectations, but looking for impact. So getting an authentic community relationship will not only provide the requirements, but it will fulfill a better chance of impact and experience throughout our communities, whether it's the professional community, but the community on the ground, as this is really intended for impact and transformative ideas so that we're not just doing less bad projects, but we're doing projects that create a future that is shifts the trajectory of an issue.
Thank you so much for that. Two things just that I'd love to build off of because we get this question as well. One is a colleague at another higher education institution is not considered a university partnership. You can absolutely have people who might be at a different institution if that's relevant to the project that you're doing, but you do need to have people who are outside of academia. And that's just because as we think about societal impact, we need perspectives from a broad range of experts that reside beyond our university boundaries. One of the types of community partners or experts are industry or business leaders. So one of the funding sources that Jessica talked about is our MnDRIVE environment funding. That is specifically to catalyze the Minnesota economic engine related to sustainability and the environment as we are able to collaborate with small and large and multinational businesses. So if you have ideas where you are working specifically with an industry, please make sure that that's well known to us so that then we can make sure that we're thinking about it in a way that helps us to understand whether or not it has a linkage to our MnDRIVE environment priorities as part of the impact goal portfolio. We have another question. Do we consider resubmissions from last year that progressed to the final round and have been revised in response to reviewer comments? So, short answer is yes. It is not infrequent that we've had teams who have had really phenomenal ideas and didn't quite make it the previous year, and have gone back and refined that idea, built up new partnerships, and really thought about how to increase the impact of the work that they're doing and have resubmitted. And so if you are doing that, we highly encourage you to take a look back at the reviewer comments, but also take a look at this year's RFP. It is quite similar to last year's RFP, but every year there are a few tweaks and refinements, and I want to make sure that as you build out your proposal, it is responsive to what we are seeking this year. Any other comments on things related to resubmissions? That also might be a really good thing to schedule an office hours with David about. David is so good because he has been a reviewer, he's been a funded INE grantee, and he has been a not funded INE grantee. If you have questions about how to think about approaching that kind of resubmission, David would have really great suggestions for you. And if there's any questions that require other team members, we'll make sure they get to us. It looks like we have just a little bit of an opening. So, Ben, I'm hoping I might be able to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Every year, we get a number of questions related to education and learning. And some of those are successful and some of them don't quite hit the mark. I'm curious, as our Director of Learning and Development, what would be particularly compelling for an INE Impact Goal proposal to be thinking about and including in their proposal if they're focused on learning and development advancements?
Yeah. I would go back to your comment about in Minnesota for the world and be thinking about what's out there, what we already know about in the fields of sustainability education and education broadly, and then be conscious of what we know, what we don't know, and what we might try here that's innovative or interesting and would give us a learning edge such that we could run some, thinking about it kind of from an experimental perspective, try some things out, see what works, see what's going to help develop the capacities, the competencies, or the knowledge or skills in people to produce the sustainability leaders and the sustainability actors we're after. So I think borrowing that framework of thinking about this from an experimental perspective will put you on the fast track to having a compelling proposal and having a good plan for how you're going to learn those things. What are you going to be looking at during the implementation of an educational innovation? What are you going to be looking for in the outcomes in people, both short-term and long-term? I'm happy to talk your ear off about educational evaluation and great research questions in education. So, and I can talk to David too. So if you want to reach out to David, I'd be happy to talk his ear off first.
May I add to that? I think that's a
Please.
beautiful explanation that Ben just offered. I think a valuable way to think about impact goals, to the degree that it includes curriculum and teaching broadly, is to think about scholarship. Right? It really is about scholarship, and scholarship at the university, we believe, is critical to delivering outcomes for society. And so we can do and do every day at the university scholarship in the name of learning and curriculum development. It's more than just, can I revise my syllabus, or I'd like to teach a new class? What is the novel or new thinking or new approach or experimental type of innovation that Ben is describing. That's what's most appropriate for this impact goal grants.
Well, and that's a really good segue because um, there's was some questions that arose of like, does this have to be Minnesota focused? And I know in our previous strategic plan, in our previous rounds of impact goal grants, we have had a Minnesota focus to the impact goal grants. But Jessica, I'm wondering if you can talk about the focus that we now have as part of our new strategic plan that started last year and our impact goal grants that followed as a result.
That's right. Okay. There isn't necessarily a right answer for this and an easy way to judge it, but there is what I hope is a clear concept or philosophy. We are the University of Minnesota. We exist to serve the state of Minnesota. We also have a plethora of incredibly interesting and important sustainability challenges in our state or that are relevant to our state. That provides us with a laboratory and an unbelievable array of partners and organizations in our state that enable us to work on issues, on a huge variety of issues. But we are also a globally relevant, globally engaged research institution. So we also work on things that matter elsewhere around the world. So I think an important frame is to be able to ask and answer the question, how is this relevant or pertinent to Minnesota? It could be the issue occurs here. It could be that, but maybe the application is somewhere else. There's a willing partner or a particularly valuable opportunity to explore that issue elsewhere, but it's relevant to us here. Or maybe it's the other way around. I want to work on a global issue and how it appears in Minnesota offers me some grounding in that issue of global significance. So tell us, what is that tie to our region or our issues or our people, so that we can have our cake and eat it too. It's both pertinent for Minnesota and places us in that global context that's so important for our research university like ours.
Thank you, Jessica. And I just want to pick up on that thread of tell us. Please don't make reviewers read between the lines. You all have such a wide-spanning set of ideas related to sustainability, impact, and disciplinary domains that teams that are particularly successful are able to help us see their vision. One of the things that we get questions about is interdisciplinary teams and what does interdisciplinary look like? And that's more than just two biologists who are working in two different subfields. We're looking for more disciplinary diversity and engagement to think about the projects from a more systemic systems level perspective. Because if you want societal impact, it's not just technological solutions or biological solutions or social solutions. These operate in a interconnected context. And to that end, we know that departments, especially across the different University of Minnesota campuses, are structured in different ways, and not every reviewer is going to have knowledge of where you sit within the university and what your department looks like. And so I'd highly encourage you to be quite clear about the disciplinary or scholarly lens that each team member brings to the work so that we can clearly see the kind of interdisciplinarity that you're bringing to the project. We understand that some departments are quite interdisciplinary in their faculty makeup, and it can be potentially difficult for someone to see a faculty member or two faculty members that come from the same department and kind of understand whether or not they are truly an interdisciplinary team or not. So if you just tell us, then it makes it a lot easier for the reviewers to fully know how to interpret that. Keep the questions coming. We still have a couple more minutes to handle maybe another 2 or 3, but April, I'm going to put you on the spot if I can, because we had a question about budgets. And the question is, can you talk a little bit about how you'd like to see budgets broken down between partners? Do you have expectations or guidelines about that? Or is there any breakdown is any breakdown that makes sense for the project allowable, provided that the funds are used for eligible expenses?
Thank you. I appreciate this question too. You'll see in the chat, I've linked our budget template. If you follow that, it'll prompt you to make a copy, and that is our required budget format for submission to the impact goals. And you'll see in that we've filled it in with a sample budget. And we don't have, short answer, we don't have a dollar amount or a threshold for which community partners should be funded by your impact goals project, because your community partners may have restrictions or limitations in their organization for how they receive funds. So we're sensitive to that. Your proposal itself should go into detail about the meaningful involvement of the community partner in the project. But you'll see in the sample budget, if you follow that link and make a copy, that it is a line item budget that we're requesting where you list out salary, different expenses, and community partners. If you're familiar with financial transactions within the university, these community partner relationships, if you're funding through them, are typically going to be through a contract for professional services, or CPS for short. So you'll work with your departmental accountant to set up that community partner if they haven't already been set up as a supplier in our financial system. And then you'll develop a contract and statement of work with them. If you have any follow-up questions for that, let us know in the Q&A there.
Thank you so much, April. The biggest thing we look for is that the money follows the work. If an organization that typically would require funding in order to fully participate at the level that has been outlined in the proposal does not show up in the budget, we're going to have a lot of questions. There are organizations like municipal governments who would be community partners on a project where they are not allowed to accept funds. And so the time that they would be spending is in kind, and it might be an unstated amount of in kind. Just being clear in your project management plan, as well as just stating as much as you're able to, so that we can just capture that and make sure that we're interpreting it correctly. Anything we can do not to make incorrect assumptions is to your benefit.
Thank you, Melissa, for expounding on that. And I'll just say, you reminded me of something. In that budget template that I linked in the chat, there's also a justification tab where you can outline all of those things Melissa talked about as well. After all of the proposals in the first round go through their review by experts, I take another review and I look at the budget and I look at the activities and I determine, like, does this make sense? Is this something that can be done in reality? It doesn't indicate anywhere where the community partner is providing in-kind services, and it doesn't look like they're receiving any money. So those are flags, yellow flags, that will come up during that first round review process, and teams will get that feedback.
Marvelous. Thank you so much for this. We're going to do a quick around the room of your top one, you get one tip or trick or something that you want to share that we haven't necessarily talked about thus far. Sean, can I put you on the spot first, and then you get to pick whoever you want next?
Yeah, I just really wanted to quickly say I'm the interim grants coordinator, grants program coordinator here. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me with an email. I'll drop the INE grants email in the chat here. So if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. And then I will pass it to Ben.
Thanks, John. My top tip would be to reach out and talk to us. One thing that Melissa has shared with me in the past is that, doing this webinar and all of these resources that are being offered, like this budget that's put before you, is because we want really good proposals. So try to reach out to us so you can make your proposal even better. April.
I'm going to go back to budget because that's my purview. And in much of the main part of the proposal, you're going to have word limitations. In the budget, you have that justification tab, which doesn't have a word limit, right? And so if there are things as it relates to the budget and the funding and the cost allowability or things of that nature, put that when in doubt, put it in the justification tab about those different expenses that are either listed or known expenses that are not necessarily in your budget, but are expected to be covered somewhere. When in doubt, use that justification tab on your budget template. Melissa.
Um, I am dreaming of the amazing impact goal statements that you all are going to write. I want you to think about how your scholarship is really advancing the frontiers of knowledge in the domain areas. And I want you to be able to describe in clear, compelling, measurable, and meaningful ways how your work matters to advance sustainability goals that are connected to our impact goal domains. If you're able to do that, you'll have very likely a competitive proposal. David.
Yeah, along with those details, which are very key, tell the story and how this all fits together and why this proposal could be transformative. And ending, of course, with Jessica.
Following on several of these, I'll just acknowledge that this grant program is both traditional in the sense that we're seeking to advance the stuff that universities do, research and education, meaningful engagement with the community at large, but it's also different than many traditional grants. And I really, really strongly encourage you as the applicants to think about how it's not just an NSF proposal, not just an NIH proposal. It's really trying to be catalytic and create enduring research and education programming that changes the work that we do and increases our impact as an institution. So be creative, but don't copy paste what you sent to the NSF last month.
Thank you. Those are great tips. We're so excited for the proposals that you're going to develop. I'd encourage you, if you're seeking to get scheduled for office hours, to reach out sooner rather than later so that you can get on the schedule. Things close to the deadline are going to be a little bit harder to get on the calendar, and we can't guarantee things that are requested 2 weeks before the deadline. Just as a reminder, the statement of intents are due February 9th. It's optional, but highly, highly encouraged. So it can help us to get reviewers set up. If you plan to submit a full proposal, that has to be done by no later than March 9th using the provided submission form. And then finally, as we said, if you have any questions, please reach out. But if you have questions, first look at our FAQ. We've tried to be thoughtful and comprehensive. Many of the questions you have are answered through that FAQ, but I guarantee some of you are going to have some new ones. So if you do, please send an email, ine-grants@umn.edu, and we'll get it to the right team member. With that, thank you so much for your time today. It's so good to see you, and we look forward to the proposals that you'll submit.